Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Sociology with Mahima. In this video, we will cover the topic Positivism, which is Unit 7 of IGNOU MSO2. So let's get started. Let's start with a simple question. Can we study society in the same way we study nature? That is exactly what Positivism believes. Positivism is a philosophical and methodological approach that says real knowledge can only come from what we can see, observe, and measure. In other words, if something cannot be observed or tested through experience, it cannot be considered valid knowledge. So, positivism focuses on facts, not opinions, observation, not speculation, and evidence, not belief. This approach comes from the world of natural sciences like physics, chemistry, or biology, where researchers observe phenomena, collect data, and draw conclusions based on evidence. Positivists argue that the same scientific principles can and should be applied to study society and human behavior. The term positivism was first introduced by Auguste Comte. He believed that just as nature follows scientific laws, society also operates according to general social laws. The job of sociology, according to Comte, was to discover these laws through systematic observation, comparison, and experimentation, just like scientists do in natural sciences. After understanding what positivism means, let's now look at its core features, the main principles that define how positivist research is conducted. The first and most fundamental feature of positivism is its belief in the scientific method. Positivists argue that the social research should be as systematic and logical as research in natural sciences. So, what does this mean in practice? It means that a sociologist should study society by following the same step-by-step scientific process used by natural scientists. This involves four main stages: observation, experimentation, comparison, and verification. The second major feature of positivism is its strong emphasis on objectivity and value neutrality. Objectivity means being neutral, unbiased, and detached while conducting research. A positivist researcher should observe society as an outsider, not as a participant influenced by emotions or personal opinions. This ensures that the findings are scientific and reliable, not colored by personal beliefs or social values. Now, what is value neutrality? It means keeping personal values, moral judgments, and biases separate from research work. A positivist believes that the facts and values must be separated. So, the researcher's task is to discover facts, not to express what they think should happen. One of the main ideas of positivism is that all sciences are fundamentally the same, whether we talk about physics, chemistry, biology, or sociology. This view is called the unity of sciences, meaning there is no basic difference between natural sciences and social sciences. Both can achieve objective, verifiable knowledge through observation and reasoning. So, sociology, according to positivists, should be modeled on natural sciences to make it more rigorous, systematic, and scientific. Another major feature of positivism is its search for laws. Just like how natural scientists look for universal laws, positivists believe social scientists should look for general laws governing human behavior. Auguste Comte, the founder of positivism, argued that society operates according to certain natural laws, and the main goal of sociology is to discover these laws through careful observation, comparison, and experimentation. Positivism places great importance on quantification, meaning it focuses on data that can be counted, measured, and statistically analyzed, rather than just described in words. Positivists argue that sociology should move beyond common sense understanding and rely on empirical measurable facts. For them, numbers are numbers, and statistics provide a more reliable and objective basis for drawing conclusions. To understand how positivism developed, we first need to look at the historical background in which it emerged. Positivism didn't appear out of nowhere. It grew out of a very special period in European history, a time full of change, discovery, and intellectual excitement. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Europe experienced what historians call the scientific revolution and later the Age of Enlightenment. During this time, thinkers and scientists like Galileo, Newton, and Descartes had shown that the world could be understood through observation, reason, and experiment, not superstition or religion. This created a wave of optimism. People began to believe that science could solve not only natural problems but also social problems. So, by the 18th and 19th centuries, intellectuals started asking, if science can explain the laws of nature, can it also explain the laws of society? This question laid the foundation of positivism, the belief that society too could be studied scientifically, just like the natural world. Two names are especially important in the early development of positivism: Claude Henry de Saint-Simon and Auguste Comte. Saint-Simon was among the first to suggest that society should be studied scientifically. Claude Henry de Saint-Simon was a French philosopher who lived during a period of enormous social and political transformation right after the French Revolution and during the early years of industrialization. In such a time, Saint-Simon began asking, can society be studied and improved in the same rational and scientific way that we study nature? Before the term sociology even existed, Saint Simon had already begun thinking about society in scientific terms. He is therefore often called the forerunner of sociology and even the founding father of positivism, because his work laid the foundation on which later thinkers, especially Auguste Comte, built the discipline. Saint Simon had a tremendous influence on Auguste Comte, who was first his secretary and later his student. Saint Simon believed that if science could explain the physical universe, it could also explain the social universe. Just as physics studies the laws of nature, he proposed that sociology, or what he called social physics, should study the laws that govern human society. Saint Simon was not just a philosopher, he was a visionary who wanted to rebuild society on scientific foundations. His philosophy of positivism was deeply rooted in his desire for social reform and human progress. Let's explore these core ideas he proposed. Saint Simon believed that all the different sciences are interconnected parts of a single, unified system of knowledge. He argued that to truly understand the world, we must see science as one grand enterprise, a unified body of rational knowledge, working together to explain and improve both nature and society. Simon saw how the theological and feudal systems controlled by priests and nobles had kept society stagnant and unequal. So, he proposed something radically new. Society should be reorganized not around religion or monarchy but around science and industry. In other words, he wanted to replace the theological feudal order with a scientific industrial order, a new kind of society guided by rational thinking, productive work, and pursuit of progress. Saint Simon believed that society needed moral unity, something that could bind people together. In the past, religion had played that role, but in modern scientific world, religion had lost its authority. So, he proposed that science itself should take over that role. It should become the new moral guide for humanity. He called this vision the religion of humanity. This didn't mean worshipping science blindly. Instead, it meant building a moral and spiritual order based on human welfare, compassion, and progress. Saint Simon was one of the earliest thinkers to recognize the transformative power of industrialization. He saw factories, technology, and productive labor as the real driving forces of progress in modern society. He believed that scientists and industrialists, not kings or priests, should lead society because they have the practical wisdom to use science and technology for the benefit of all. Now let's talk about Auguste Comte, who is often called the father of sociology and also known as the founder of positivism. To understand his ideas, we need to remember the time in which he lived, the 19th century, a period when Europe had gone through major transformations like the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, and the French Revolution. Comte was greatly influenced by his teacher and mentor Saint Simon. Comte took the idea of Saint Simon further and developed it into a systematic philosophy, something that could be applied step by step to study society in a scientific manner. According to Comte, true knowledge comes only from science. He completely rejected speculation, superstition, and theology as ways of understanding the world. He argued that beliefs based on religion or imagination cannot be verified, so they cannot be considered reliable knowledge. Instead, he believed that scientific observation, experimentation, and logical reasoning are the only valid methods of discovering truth. Auguste Comte made some of the most significant contributions to sociology and positivist philosophy, shaping the very foundation of modern social science. He didn't just coin the term sociology, he actually established it as an independent scientific discipline, separate from philosophy and psychology. In fact, he called sociology the queen of sciences because he believed it was the most complex and comprehensive of all sciences, capable of unifying knowledge about human life and society. Comte firmly believed that social phenomena, that is, all aspects of human society, can and should be studied scientifically using the same methods that are applied in the natural sciences. In his view, the scientific method could help us understand society objectively and bring about social order and progress. One of the Comte's most famous contributions was his law of three stages. According to him, both human thought and society evolve through three distinct stages of intellectual development. These three stages are theological stage. In this earliest stage, people explain everything through religion or divine power. Events are understood as the will of gods or supernatural forces. Second stage is metaphysical stage. In this transitional stage, abstract reasoning replaces religious explanation. People use philosophical ideas like nature, essence, or reason to explain the world, but these are still not scientific. Finally, the last stage, positive stage. In this modern stage, people rely on science, observation, and experimentation. This stage represents maturity of the human mind, where explanations are based on evidence and scientific reasoning, not on speculation or belief. Another major contribution from Comte was his classification of sciences. He divided all sciences into two categories: analytical science. These are the basic or fundamental sciences such as mathematics, astronomy, physics, chemistry, and biology. They study simpler, more general laws of universe. While synthetic sciences, sociology according to Comte falls under this category. It's called synthetic because it combines insights from all other sciences to study the most complex subject of all, human society. Comte also argued that all other sciences before sociology had incomplete philosophies. While they provide valuable knowledge, they studied only particular aspects of reality, but none studied the totality of human existence and society. Sociology therefore was meant to fill that gap, to create a complete and integrated understanding of human life by connecting all forms of knowledge. Finally, Comte's greatest intellectual achievement was the synthesis, or unification of all sciences into a single positivist social philosophy. Now that we understood what positivism is and how it emphasizes scientific observation and objectivity, it's equally important to know that positivism has faced several major criticisms, especially from later sociologists and philosophers. Let's start with one of the most fundamental criticisms, the neglect of subjectivity. Positivism is often criticized because it treats human beings like objects, as if they can be studied in the same way that a scientist studies rocks, plants, or chemicals. But human beings are not passive objects. They are thinking, feeling, and meaning-making individuals. When positivists insist on using only scientific method, they ignore the inner world of human experience. This is a big problem because social behavior is guided by meaning. Each of these meanings completely changes how we interpret the action, and these meanings cannot be captured by mere observations or statistics. One of the strongest criticisms against positivism is that it treats society as if it were nature, which according to many scholars is a fundamental mistake. Critics argue that social reality is not something that exists independently of human beings. It is something we create through interaction. In the natural sciences, we study natural phenomena that follow fixed universal laws, but society doesn't work like that. Human society is not a collection of lifeless objects. It is made up of living, thinking, and feeling human beings. Humans have consciousness, intentions, values, and emotions. They act with purpose, not just as automatic reactions. Now, another major criticism of positivism is its overemphasis on objectivity and value neutrality. Positivists argue that the researcher should be completely objective, detached, and value-free. But critics argue that this idea is unrealistic. Values are inevitable in social research. When studying society, values influence every step of the research process. They influence what topic a researcher chooses to study. They affect what questions are asked and which are ignored. They shape how we interpret the data we collect. Critics also say that by pretending to be neutral, positivism often hides the biases of dominant social groups. Positivism is often criticized for assuming that society is inherently stable, orderly, and harmonious. They focused on how things work rather than why they might be unfair or unequal. However, this way of seeing society ignores a very important reality, that society is not always peaceful or fair. It is full of conflicts, power struggles, and inequalities. Critics argue that by focusing only on what is, positivism overlooks what ought to be. That is, it avoids asking moral and political questions about justice, power, and emancipation. Another major criticism of positivism is its overdependence on quantitative methods. While this approach gives an appearance of accuracy and objectivity, it comes with serious limitations when studying human society. Not everything that matters can be measured. Many important aspects of social life simply cannot be captured in numbers. How do you measure love, motivation, belief, or identity with statistics? Apart from the major criticism we have already discussed, there are also some additional criticism that highlight how positivism sometimes fails to capture the true complexity of the social world. Positivism tries to make the study of society as simple as physics, but society is much more complex and unpredictable. It also imagines an ideal form of objectivity and neutrality that is very hard to achieve in practice. That's all for today's video. Here are some questions which have come into the exams in previous years. This topic has come into the exam very frequently, so practice them very well. Thank you for joining the class. See you in the next video.